Mourning the loss of John McCain, one of the longest-serving senators in U.S. history. Cutting down on prescriptions, sending users to the black market.
We've seized enough fentanyl to potentially kill 50 million Americans.
Climate change and the future of wildfires in Arizona.
If you want to avoid these mega fires, you've got to get serious about climate.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Lorraine Rivera and welcome to Arizona 360. This week, the United States mourns the loss of Arizona Senator John McCain. McCain died Saturday at the age of 81, just days before he was to turn 82. The senator lost his battle with brain cancer, surrounded by his family at his home near Sedona. A look back now at his life and legacy.
I grew up in eventful times, and I've served in eventful times. I've seen America become a more just and prosperous country, coming ever closer to the ideals set down by our founders.
Born in the tropics of Panama in 1936, John Sidney McCain III had a transient childhood, growing up on numerous U.S. and foreign naval bases. It would take him 45 years to finally settle in the Arizona desert, where he would eventually become Arizona's second longest-serving U.S. senator. McCain's namesakes were grandfather John S. McCain Sr., a highly decorated and well-respected admiral serving with distinction throughout World War II. His father, John S. McCain II, another Navy admiral, would in 1968 become the commander of all U.S. forces in Vietnam. With that lineage, it was expected that he would attend the U.S. Naval Academy, and he graduated in 1958. McCain would later say that his father wanted me to know that a man's life should be big enough to encompass both duty to family and duty to country. McCain became a naval aviator flying the A-4 Skyhawk, a small bomber. On October 26, 1967, on his 23rd mission of the Vietnam War, he was shot down over Hanoi and captured by the enemy North Vietnamese. He spent over 5 years as a prisoner of war and experienced frequent torture, but scant medical treatment for his broken arms and leg, which would never fully heal. He later proclaimed that Vietnam changed me in significant ways for the better, and I gained a seriousness of purpose that observers of my early life had found difficult to detect. That purpose led him to Arizona, where as a Republican, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1982 for 2 terms, and then in 1986, he succeeded Barry Goldwater to become a U.S. Senator, where he has served since.
Thank you.
He made 2 attempts to become the President of the United States. After losing the 2000 South Carolina primary to eventual Republican nominee George Bush, Senator McCain declared, "I will not take the low road to the highest office in this land. I want the presidency in the best way, not the worst way." Senator McCain won the Republican Party presidential nomination in 2008, but lost the general election to Barack Obama. As a member of Congress, he prioritized legislation for veteran affairs, Native Americans, public lands, foreign affairs, homeland security, and transportation. In his personal life, he was married to Carol Shep for nearly 15 years, and then later to Cindy Lou Hensley since 1980. He has 3 adopted and 4 biological children. At the pinnacle of his political career in 2008, Senator McCain reflected on his life's journey. "I fell in love with my country when I was a prisoner in someone else's. I loved it not just for the many comforts of life here. I loved it for its decency, for its faith in the wisdom, justice, and goodness of its people. I loved it because it was not just a place, but an idea, a cause worth fighting for." This past Friday, John McCain's family announced he would no longer seek treatment for brain cancer. Hours later, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, who was visiting Tucson, spoke briefly about the legacy of John McCain.
I think it's immeasurable to talk about what John McCain has meant to Arizona and America. He has been a giant in the United States Senate. We certainly miss his voice in Washington, but his ability to work across the board with people, regardless of political affiliation, his view of America as a leader in the world, and his ambassadorship to the rest of the world for our values has been something that has tremendously touched everyone in the United States and around the world.
John McCain served as an Arizona congressman and senator for more than 30 years. His term as senator would have ended in 2022. Senator McCain's death creates a vacancy in the U.S. Senate, which means Governor Ducey will make an appointment. Joining me now is Arizona Public Media's political reporter Christopher Conover. Christopher, help me understand what's the next step in this process.
As you said, Governor Ducey will appoint a Republican to replace Senator McCain. That person will serve until the next general election, which is 2020. After that, we will have the election, but that person, whoever wins that election, will only serve out the remainder of Senator McCain's term, which goes until 2022. That way we stay on the 6-year cycle.
Why do we need to have a special election if that seat would have been Senator McCain's until 2022?
The way Arizona law is set up, and every state sets up their own law for replacing senators, is that the governor appoints only until the next general election when dealing with U.S. senators. Remember, those are 6-year terms, and a gubernatorial term is a 4-year term.
This week we have a primary. Does Senator McCain's death impact at all this upcoming election cycle?
Could impact the politics, but not the voting. The U.S. Senate seat we are voting on in the primary and in the general is the seat that is currently held by Senator Jeff Flake.
Senator McCain announced his diagnosis of the deadly brain cancer more than a year ago. So what have been the plans? Because he did talk pretty openly about funeral plans.
In recent months, he has talked about it, and his desire, and we assume his desire will be honored, is to be buried at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, where he was a student and has always had a love for that facility.
Okay, surely more to come in the week ahead. Christopher, thank you so much. And now we return to our regular Arizona 360 program as recorded on Friday. This week, Tucson Medical Center filed suit against 31 opioid distributors and manufacturers. It comes as data shows physicians in Arizona are writing fewer prescriptions. According to state health officials, since Governor Doug Ducey declared an emergency in June 2017, the number of pills dispensed each month decreased 43%, going from more than 35,000 to just over 20,000 as of June 2018. But that doesn't necessarily translate into a drop in drug use. On the enforcement side, the Drug Enforcement Administration says it's seen an increase in the number of illicit opioid seizures. We learn more from Special Agent in Charge, Doug Coleman.
And we see a lot of fentanyl coming across the border here into Arizona now, and I think that that's directly related to the fact that the opioid prescription drugs are getting harder and harder to get, but we still have these addicted people out there that need to get their fix from someplace.
As the need increases, are smugglers or these guys who are making drugs becoming a little bit more sloppy and they're making it that now we're seeing things, fentanyl, that can kill people?
So fentanyl is a very, very dangerous drug, and here's why it's so dangerous. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is potentially lethal to somebody that doesn't have an opiate addiction and is not used to opiates. So what happens is I don't know that they're getting sloppier, but what happens is you're in Mexico and you're in a clandestine laboratory and you're manufacturing this product. And what you're doing is you're not a chemist, you're not in a laboratory setting, so you can't be sure exactly how much of the product is getting mixed up into what you're making because of the way that they mix it and manufacture it. One of those pills may only have 1 milligram of fentanyl in it. Another one of those pills in the same batch may have 4 milligrams of fentanyl in it. If you take the 1, you're okay. If you take the one that has 4, it's going to kill you. And so they can't make sure that the appropriate dose is in each one of those pills. And I think that's the problem that we have with the overdoses. Just in the last 9 months, our agents here in Arizona, we've seized enough fentanyl to potentially kill 50 million Americans.
You say they come across the border. Coming through the ports or outside the ports? Is this a new marijuana smuggling?
No, most of our hard drugs are going to come through the ports. They're usually secreted in vehicles and in hidden compartments of vehicles For the heroin and the fentanyl, because it's such a powerful drug and you can actually smuggle it in relatively small quantities to make a good profit, we'll actually see it strapped to people's bodies. We will see it internally carried. So there's a lot of different ways that they're getting it across, but the hard stuff usually comes through the ports.
If we know it's coming through the ports, why can't we stop it there?
So a lot of people don't realize this, but Nogales Port of Entry, for example, 70% of the winter produce that comes into the United States comes in through that particular port. So the volume is so high that we can't possibly stop every car there and search every car, especially when you're talking about something that can be brought across in as small a quantity as a pound or 2 pounds and hidden in a vehicle.
So the governor will say the legal prescriptions are down, but the illicit drugs on your end, they're up.
Yeah, so what's happened is that we've had this huge explosion of opiate addicts in the United States. And the cartels are smart enough to figure out that, hey, if people are addicted to opiates, they're also going to move to heroin. So what happens, they start the heroin, and probably 3 or 4 years ago, we saw a massive influx of heroin coming across from the Mexican cartels. And then in order to compete with each other, they started producing the fentanyl product, which is a stronger opiate product.
So what does Arizona look like when the government is really trying to clamp down on prescriptions, but the market is still there for the same product?
I think Arizona was definitely in the forefront of passing the legislation to try to limit the amount of the prescriptions that come across. And DEA is doing some stuff. We're trying to lower the amount. We just announced that we're going to lower the amount that's allowed to be manufactured in the United States as well. We announced that yesterday. And I think all these things are big steps. I think the problem is that we've got a lot of people out there that have addiction problems, and we're going to have to deal with that issue next. So it's going to be in increments. The bad thing is that this is a very complex problem that's taken years to get to. It's not going to be solved overnight.
I know you've said this before, we just can't blame the enforcement arm of this. Who else needs to be at the table in figuring out how to solve this problem?
Whenever we talk about the opioid crisis, we have to look at each other because we're all responsible. Doctors are responsible by the way that they prescribed. Medical schools are responsible by the way that they taught the doctors how to do it. We as the American consumer are responsible because we demanded these products. Big pharmaceutical companies won't make opioids if we don't demand them and doctors don't prescribe them for us. So we're all responsible for this. And I think that we're finally getting to that point here in this country where we realize that we're all responsible and everybody that has a role in it is doing their part. But I think that we're still a ways to go. The new overdose numbers just came out from last year. They're still up. So unfortunately, I think there's a possibility that this problem hasn't reached its apex yet. But I do think that the things that are being put in place are going to help the problem over the long term. But remember, this is a 20-year problem. This all started about 20 years ago when OxyContin came onto the market. That's when this whole issue started. It took us 20 years to get here. It's not going to be solved in a day.
In Pima County, opioid overdoses are the #1 cause of death, and drug addiction is behind the majority of property crimes. Last month, Tucson police implemented a new program to address both issues. The deflection program lets officers choose whether to arrest people for minor felony drug crimes or refer them for treatment instead. Since July, nearly 50 people have avoided arrest. We learned more about this approach from Assistant Chief Kevin Hall, who is spearheading the department's efforts.
This is a public health issue. So what the deflection program is about is not putting these folks in jail where they don't receive treatment and it only exacerbates their issues, but it's about finding the right placement for them with treatment.
Describe how this works. An officer interacts with somebody who's just committed a crime and maybe needs more than just being placed in the Pima County Jail.
Well, yes, and that's a true deflection, and there's a lot of different parts of this program, but the deflection part is there are criminal charges that a person can be charged with. For example, if an officer comes across somebody on a bicycle traffic, what we call bicycle traffic, they stop somebody for riding on the wrong side of the road. They have a syringe sticking out of their pocket. Well, they have reasonable suspicion to stop them, and then they have probable cause to make an arrest for narcotics paraphernalia. At that point in time, the officer engages them with the training that we've provided, and they make a determination whether this person is ready for treatment or not, because a lot of people are not ready, and they have to be ready for treatment. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. After the officer engages that individual, then they make the decision, is treatment better for this individual at this point in time than jail? They can either call our primary partner, Kodak, or they can transport the individual themselves. Kodak will send out a team to pick up the individual.
Once at Kodak, medical professionals will assess each person and determine if it's safe for them to begin medicated-assisted treatment for their addiction. We learn more from Kodak's Vice President of Clinical Services, Dan Barden.
Right now, about 2/3 of the people that are coming in are actually, getting engaged in treatment and doing really well. So, and a third of them go into what we refer to as an outreach stage. They might check in, they might leave. We go find them, we get them engaged.
Kodak can get patients started on Suboxone or Methadone, often an outpatient daily dose, so they can avoid withdrawals while they detox. Treatment varies depending on the person and their history of drug use. Some are treated in months, others take years.
Once upon a time there was a belief in that, once you started methadone you could never come off it, but that's not really true. Our Dr. Anate works really well with his team and all the docs to work with members to make sure that we're always creating that hope and moving toward detox.
Kodak has existed in Tucson for 45 years. This past January, it expanded its services to treat people 24/7, a rare resource in this area made possible thanks to federal funding.
When somebody decides it's time to get help, we wanted to be here, we wanted to be open, we wanted to be available to them when they made that decision so they could walk in at that point in time, get assessed, we could talk to them about appropriate treatments and get them started in treatment. We're in this wonderful place right now when it comes to funding, because between all of the different funding that's out there there's money for anybody. There's funding for anybody who wants opioid use disorder treatment now. Not saying that I can't afford it, I can't pay for it, is not an excuse right now.
On the issue of funding, I asked Assistant Chief Hall what the deflection program cost the city of Tucson.
Let's say this person goes to rehab and fails, doesn't do well. Any bounce back to the city as a result of that?
No, it is absolutely cost neutral from a financial standpoint. There's no liability from a criminal standpoint. The only thing that we did is save the taxpayers about $375 for not booking the individual and taking them to treatment.
It sounds like a second chance. Any concern that this might send the wrong message to people who are just drug users and wanting to maybe get off easy?
There is that trend amongst certain members of the community that drug use is a moral failure or a choice. What we know, once again, the science behind addiction, particularly with opioids, is while it may have been a choice at the very beginning, it very rapidly, within 30 to 60 days, it's no longer a choice. They need the drugs, and they have to have the drugs.
Putting a lot of pressure on the officer to make that judgment, or the training creates that scenario for them to know this is the person who needs treatment as opposed to jail time?
Well, law enforcement officers make life and death decisions almost daily, and the pressures that they are under in a variety of different circumstances make, in my opinion, make them uniquely qualified to make these kind of decisions, which are not a whole lot of pressure for them. One way or another, they're going to deal with the individual. The only pressure is, are they doing it in the right way? Is treatment better or is jail better? And we've very much supported the officer on either decision.
Have you had officers who were concerned that this is not necessarily their area of expertise, or that it's taking them outside their line of work?
Yes, yes. And we've dealt with this in the past when we first offered, or when we first mandated that the officers have to carry naloxone, and we were one of the first departments in Arizona to do that. We got that pushback. Well, this isn't what we signed up for, and this isn't our job. And we said, welcome to 21st century policing. It's your job now. And quite frankly, it only took a couple of saves or rescues, and everybody was on board. As soon as they saw that this stuff actually works and they save lives, I mean, let's face it, cops get into the job to help people. And as soon as they figure out they can save somebody's life really quickly and really easily, all of that resistance went away.
Tucson police can only refer adults for deflection as long as they're not on probation or parole for violent offenses or haven't been arrested in the past year for a violent offense. Researchers at the University of Arizona are also evaluating the program's success. While unprecedented wildfires burn across California, Arizona largely avoided catastrophe during its dry season in spring, in part because of proactive restrictions at national forests that help minimize the risk. Meantime, hundreds of firefighters from Arizona have joined crews on the front lines in California, where the deadly fires have also sparked discussion about the role of climate change in their intensity and growth. It's an issue we explored with U of A professors Donald Falk and Michael Crimmins, both experts in wildfire behavior and climate change, respectively.
The fundamental cause of climate change, and really talking about the long-term trend in temperature and the expectation of continuing change in temperature, is the emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Things that people are contributing to.
That's right. So again, it's back to the fossil fuels. So everything from burning coal at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to cars using fuel and us using airplanes.
Okay, so people, one factor. Wildfires, Don, I know you're the fire guy. That also contributes to climate change?
It does indirectly. When vegetation burns, it emits a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, including CO2, carbon monoxide, a lot of other things that actually do contribute to climate change. Some years, that actually is a significant factor in the greenhouse gas emissions. In the long run, though, there's no question that our human combustion of fossil fuels is the bigger factor.
Right now, we have you both in during the summertime. We're seeing wildfires, especially in California. That's obviously a part of this. Are we seeing this in other areas of, you said, the country, but also around the world?
It's not only the occurrence of a fire, it's how it behaves, and that means how hot it gets, how long the flames are, how fast it moves. And so we have to think not only about the area that's burning, but how those fires are burning. And we see definitely an expanding footprint of fire all around the world.
What we're seeing globally, that has an impact on what we're seeing here, for example, in the U.S. and the Southwest.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these weather patterns globally are going to end up feeding back onto to the West. So seasonally, we are seeing the kind of normal progression of heating up of the West, progression of the monsoon season into the Southwest, sort of slowing down our wildfire season here. There are still wildfires burning in Arizona. Mm-hmm. We've had several lightning ignitions over the last couple of weeks, but I think that the fire management agencies are starting to use those as opportunities to move the fire around and use them in a productive way to bring fire back onto the landscape.
What's happening right now with our climate, what does this tell us about 10 years away, 20 years away?
So we all know that because of the factors that drive climate change, a certain amount of climate change is already in the atmosphere. It's already happening. Even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases today, it's certainly going to take a long time for that to level off. And so when we look ahead the next 20 to 30 years, we definitely see increasing area burned in the western U.S. In fact, I looked this morning at some of our previous projections, and sometimes you hate to be right, but this area where these big fires are happening is one of the areas where we projected a 2 to 4 time increase in wildfire area burned. So I would say, with the temperature increases that are pretty much already committed to happening, and the physics of fire, that we're going to see bigger fire seasons.
You guys study this, though. Are we as prepared as we should have been for what's taking place right now?
Nobody should be surprised that we're having these big fire seasons. And honestly, the long-term strategy is, if you want to avoid these mega fires, you've got to get serious about climate. Now, that's a 20 to 50 year strategy. In the meantime, you have to have a level of preparedness and training, year-round fire crews, and doing a lot more thinning of these flashy fuels than we have been doing.
Mike, you're the climate guy. That makes sense to you?
Absolutely. I think that from an Arizona perspective, too, we have this really unique climate where we have a winter wet season, I have to use my air quotes, and then the summer monsoon season. And so our fire season is bracketed between these two seasons. So any changes in either of those seasons can either lengthen or shorten the fire season. Overnight temperatures are increasing faster than daily high temperatures. And the interesting thing about that is that as you have warmer overnight temperatures, your relative humidity overnight doesn't increase as you'd expect to, as it would when it would be cooler out. So having warmer overnight temperatures, lower relative humidities, more nocturnal fire behavior that you would normally see. And so I think that that's been one of the hallmarks of the California fires, is these warmer overnight temperatures. There's now seeing overnight fire activity that they haven't seen before.
Wildfires are costing us, on average, $20 billion a year when you take in not only the cost of suppression, but all the economic costs, insurance losses, and so forth. If you put that $20 billion to work trying to improve the condition of the forest and give us a better level of preparedness, you would not put people's lives at risk as much, and you could really get out ahead of the curve.
Are we adapting enough as a society, as people, about how we just conduct our day-to-day activities?
Probably not, but I don't think we ever have as human beings. We're always kind of playing catch up and sort of responding to our conditions. And I think, as Don is saying, is there are programs where in the western U.S. of trying to live with fire. I mean, this is part of our ecosystems. We need to have them as part of our ecosystems. There's programs like FireWise, which the state has invested in here in Arizona, and my job within Extension is invested in as well. So I think it's working within communities that are sort of living in the forest or living on the fringes of the forest, and the wildland-urban interface is having people have the proper relationship in these ecosystems with fire.
Okay, my thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
This month marks a milestone for NASA's asteroid sample return mission OSIRIS-REX. You'll remember the unmanned spacecraft is speeding toward the asteroid Bennu to collect samples to return to Earth in 2023. Now, nearly 2 years since its launch, U of A researchers leading the mission shared new photos of Bennu as the spacecraft begins to approach its target.
We launched back in September 2016, and after about 2 years of travel, we're finally close enough to the asteroid where we can actually see it. It will just look like a star moving among the other stars. We're about 2 million kilometers or 1.2 million miles out, to put that in a little more layman's term, 5 Earth to Moon distances away from the asteroid. So now we just keep hitting reload until we get something. Well, the nice thing is we know exactly where the asteroid is because we've had years and years of ground-based observation, and we know where the spacecraft is. And so we know pretty much almost to the pixel on the camera where in the sky the asteroid should be. Actually, we're really close. We're still in the Milky Way, but we're moving away from the Milky Way.
The observations get downlinked from the spacecraft, traveling at the speed of light to Earth here. Right now, it takes about just under 6 minutes to get from the spacecraft to the Deep Space Network here on Earth, and then it takes a number of minutes to get sent to the various places around Earth before we receive it here in the building.
Oh, Mike, tell him he took us in the right direction.
There's a bunch of stars in here, as you can see. They're not moving much. And then the moving dot here is actually the asteroid. This is about an hour between each image, roughly. Now we begin what we call the approach phase. And so from now till the beginning of December, as we get closer and closer, we're going to be doing a number of investigations from what color is the asteroid, how fast is it spinning, does it have satellites or dust around it that might harm the spacecraft, as well as the first images where you start to actually see a shape there and get a model. So really it's kind of dipping our toe into what Bennu is really like.
And that concludes our program. Arizona Public Media will continue to follow events related to the passing of John McCain and have updates throughout the week here on PBS 6 as well as on our website news.azpm.org. You can also follow us on social media. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.